everybody, Jewel back with another super cool astrology video. And I wanted to talk about the conjunction of Venus and Saturn in a natal chart and what we see when we have this. So Venus is what we value, our values, what we esteem, a lot of what we give our attention to is Venus. And our sense of the securities that we earn through the application of our talents and our what we work for ourselves. And it's also a lot about our self-esteem in general. The second house is very much about, the natural ruler is Venus, and so, our self-esteem is very much represented by Venus. And partners and partnerships and what we find valuable in partners is also a part of Venus. And so it's also our material securities as well, and how we love and how we want to be loved. So our love language, Venus rules all of that. And so Saturn is our concept of success and what it takes to get there and what that is. It is the part of us that takes a measured approach, that's careful, that's conservative, that's kind of paranoid, that doesn't want to get into trouble. I have to see how somebody's Saturn is aspected, though. Sometimes it's not really the case. And you have to look at their Jupiter, too. But it is the part within us that is not willing to leap before we look very, very carefully. It's not a spontaneous element to our personality. So Saturn is what we work hard for and end up deserving, and the fortune that we end up making for ourselves through our hard work and what that ends up bringing us. So it's not really so much the getting or the doing. It's the more the outcome of that. What is the success factor of that? So people that have this conjunction value the things of Saturn. They value success. They value status. They value a measured approach. They value continuity, loyalty. It doesn't mean that there's going to be those things. You have to see how this is aspected in general. I'll talk a little bit about that. They are good with money. They have good money sense most of the time. They can make large amounts of money and then they can lose it, because we can have some fifth house things going on, or maybe there's a Marsy, Leo Marsy thing going on there. And so most of the time, though, they are very methodical when it comes to what they accrue in terms of their money and their finances and their things. They like nice things. They are not into cheap quality. But at the same time, they are not really spendy people. They tend to be careful with their money, and they don't tend to pay their bills until they have to, or unless they have to. So prudent is really the word for this particular conjunction. Sometimes even prudish can be the word, depending, because not only are they not loose with their money or their time, they are also tend to not be loose with their bodies. But you have to look at everything, because we could have some other stuff going on, and that makes it situational for them. So, we have two planets that really represent two different elements of security issues, where, Venus is money, earned securities through our stuff, our possessions, our income. And Saturn is really, those securities that we earn through our hard work and the outcome of what we put in at the second house. So it's an interesting conjunction because it puts two planets that don't really, they have a lot in common, but they don't have a lot in common at the same time. So they're sort of good neighbors and they're sort of not. Because Venus is that warm part of us, Saturn is not. And so it makes for a more closed off love nature that somebody's got going on. You can have other things. You can have like Venus opposing Pluto, or Venus in hard aspect to Mars, and a Uranus hard aspect going on in there too. And that can really, warm things up because people are multi-layered. And the different aspects that we have, often, we are not the same person in every situation of our life or with everything. We change situation to situation, person to person. And so a lot of the aspects in our chart, most of them, they show up situationally. And so this is one that does definitely show up in the love nature, but this is also one that tends to bleed out through the larger scope of their life. Venus is also our social leanings. And when we have Saturn, which is our ideas of what should be, and it's very black and white, and it's very traditional. And it's sitting with Venus, which is how we relate to people socially, and a lot of the friends that we choose to keep. We can have some very concrete ideas about what those friends should be, especially if this is going to fall into the 11th house. We can see people that have to work through some amount of like built-in prejudice, because there's a certain amount of breaking down those walls or breaking down those social conventions that have really built up this this belief here. So it's one that has a lot of social implications in it. And so we tend to want to associate with important people, with people that we deem that have a lot of esteem for us. That makes people with this conjunction and with hard aspects from Venus to Saturn feel really good. When they are recognized by somebody in authority or like royalty or government or something, it really helps to boost their confidence. They actually don't have very good confidence, but it's really hard to tell because they're very, very invulnerable and they don't like to show their cards. So as far as partners go, they tend to be somewhat utilitarian, and they're looking for and value the same in another partner. They like a capable partner. They like a domestic partner. Honesty tends to be very important when we have this particular conjunction, both in our business dealings, our social dealings, and our romantic dealings. Both. All three. It's late, and I actually turned on the viewfinder, and I was like, oh, I look rough. I usually don't make videos in the evening, and yeah, probably shouldn't. But on with it. So Status is important to them in a partner. Success factor is important to them. And how that partner reflects on their own image or sense of status. They tend to value people that have some kind of, they're the cream of the social crop in some fashion. So if Neptune is in hard aspect to Venus, this can complicate things with this particular conjunction, because we're looking for one thing, but we're also looking for something else. And Saturn is things that are loyal, things that are long-lived, things that are concrete, things that are known, things that are that you can expect it to be in place, after even a certain amount of time. And Neptune is things that are unclear, things that are open-ended, and things that aren't necessarily known. And so this is one where, although they value honesty very much in our relationship, if we have Neptune in a hard aspect of this particular conjunction, then we can see somebody that, looks for and values honesty, but yet finds some amount of deception in their relationships, or some amount of illusion in their relationships. And this is a process of seeing through this, getting really clear and getting really concrete, and really taking out the machine that just really blows all the fog machine away. So it's an amazing thing to watch somebody really unfold when they have this, because they can go from very disappointing, somewhat deceptive, Neptunian themed relationships into much more concrete expectations, much more concrete thinking, and really develop their filtering process when they have this particular conjunction going on. They tend to have a problem with negative thinking. They are a negative Nelly. And especially negative thinking in love. And they can spend a lot of time alone or lonely. They fall into some very specific categories where we can either have somebody who has very large spaces between relationships, very unsatisfying, lonely spaces between relationships, or they marry very young for security, and they keep that going really no matter what until it absolutely, usually the other person opts out, or they wait until they're really, really old or older, and because they have been too picky and have looked for everything and have wanted everything and have not been able to find that, they now don't want to die alone, because that's a real big fear with this particular conjunction. We don't want to die alone. We want to have a love or a partner there at the end. And so they will attach at that point. So they're pretty predictable in how they will go about their love lives. And predictability is really important to them in their love lives as well. They can be the quiet giver around the house. They tend to be service-oriented partners. A lot of their identity structure is built around supporting or being a support of some kind. So, they very much believe that they have to provide to receive love, or support in order to receive love. So it's very much this monetary give and take that they have associated with what love is. it's that their love nature is so much tied up in this concept of deserving and security. So they feel like if they can make themselves valuable to you, because remember, Venus is what we value and Saturn is our sense of earned securities. When they can make themselves valuable to you, and usually like serving or caretaking or supporting or bringing in money, then they think you will see them as worthy and you will respond in a similar fashion. So they earn love, they earn friendship, they earn their value through this process of, service or supporting. So it's almost like, if they put themselves to work for you, then their payment is your love, and then they know that you're going to keep them on the payroll because they're a good employee. When they really need to understand that their own belief about needing to deserve is really where the deep lessons of this aspect come in. Because if you set the relationship up a certain way, because they do, they have a role that they put themselves into. And it's typically the supporter or the doer, the quiet cleaner up after, they can turn themselves into the maid, or on the opposite end, if we see somebody who's maybe the more masculine version of this aspect, they are the one that goes out and does all their earning and earns as much as they can because they're going to prove to you that they can do it and they're worth something, man. So it's interesting that they can end up being treated like the maid or like the walking wallet. And this is something that they don't like. They very much resent this because they see this as disrespectful. Respect is so important when we have this conjunction. It is so, so, so important. And when they aren't met with that after what they've put out there, this can be very, very hurtful to them and be a real barrier to their ability to open up to you, which is really difficult for them. They would rather earn your love and earn the security of having you, of knowing they have you, through providing for you or giving you material things or making sure that all your needs are met. They're not so much good at the heartfelt opening up, sharing, let's get intimate and honest about feelings. That is much, much more difficult for them. That's not really how they understand love, or that's not really their style of receiving love even. So it's, their identity being so wrapped up in being a good doer or provider really does set them up for then having this problem of then feeling like, well, you treat me nothing like a doer or a provider. And people will treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. That's how it is. And so we have to really take a step back and really examine our motivations for the way that we're behaving in our relationships, in our social relationships, especially our romantic relationships. You already deserve everything. There's nothing that you need to do in order to get love. Finding relationships where it isn't based on, are you, filling out what it is they expect you to be done with at the end of the day. This is something that can really get in their way because they do tend to attract somewhat utilitarian relationships because they're comfortable in them, but they are not satisfied in them. So we have to get over this need to prove ourselves and realize that we are already worthy. And this leads to an ability to be at least somewhat vulnerable with the partner, rather than being, the invulnerable, I'm the one that's going to make sure that everything's taken care of and bills are paid and all of this. They can somewhat switch roles and become one that is able to receive, because the receiving is off with this particular conjunction. And it's an interesting one to have, because it does provide a certain amount of resilience in someone's character, the ability to get over heartbreaks. We can nurse them, definitely, for large periods of time, but we can generally pick up and go on with better than most people. It is important to look at the sign and the house that Venus and Saturn come into when you're looking at how someone views their partner through the eyes of others. Meaning that if this particular aspect, this conjunction between Venus and Saturn, is in aspect to the midheaven, usually in any aspect, it's really predisposes somebody to needing to have a partner that is very showy, or that is considered very beautiful or very successful or very, very 10th house. The best. They're looking for the best. So, Venus in the 10th house tends to show up as this. But when we have Venus sitting with Saturn and they're both in aspect to the midheaven, we can see someone that can be more prone to changing up partners, because they can be looking for the bigger, better deal. But they are going to be very demanding of loyalty within the relationships that they do create. So it can predispose somebody to an attitude of, I can do what I want, but you definitely can't. Or I can have what I want, but you'll have what I give you, if we have this in aspect to the midheaven. So it very much increases the likelihood or the chances that somebody is looking for an arm charm or a mate that is very publicly suitable. So I think that's what I wanted to say, and I hope that it was helpful, and if it was, please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on the internet at truthandaspectastrology.com, Facebook and Instagram. I do private consultation, yes, and I will be back super soon with more super cool videos. Bye-bye.